Welcome back to my YouTube channel, CoinNexa Vault. The 4 coins we are covering today are going to hit you like a freight train one after another, and I need you to understand right now that this list is deliberately ordered. Each coin is more extraordinary than the one before it, and the final coin on this list is the kind of discovery that makes grown collectors go completely silent the moment they see it. So stay locked in from the very first second, because leaving early today means missing the most important coin of all, every so often. History hides a fortune in plain sight, and the 1986 P. Washington quarter is living proof of exactly that statement, because this is a coin that rolled out of the Philadelphia Mint in 1986 looking for all the world like every other quarter produced that year, the same familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse, the same eagle spread wide on the reverse, the same clad composition of copper bonded with nickel that the Mint had been using since 1965, and yet, in the hands of the right collector, in the right grade, this coin commands attention and serious money in a way that most people standing in line at a grocery store checkout would never believe possible. Now 1986 was not a quiet year at the Philadelphia Mint. Production volumes were enormous, the facility was pushing out hundreds of millions of quarters to feed the insatiable demand of American commerce, and it is precisely in those high-volume, high-pressure production environments that the most interesting things happen. When a mint is running at full throttle, die pairs accumulate where faster, quality control windows get compressed, and small anomalies that might be caught in a slower production cycle slip through the system and make their way into bank bags, into rolls, into cash registers, and eventually into the hands of people who have absolutely no idea what they are holding. Collectors who specialize in modern Washington quarters have documented examples of the 1986 P exhibiting a range of surface and strike characteristics that separate ordinary circulation examples from genuinely exciting finds. Among the most discussed in collector circles are coins showing what specialists describe as a strong strike doubling on the obverse, where the date and the word Liberty show a subtle but unmistakable secondary impression, visible under magnification and sometimes even to a trained naked eye, that speaks directly to the mechanical realities of high-speed die pressing in a busy mint environment. Beyond the doubling, there are 1986 P quarters that have surfaced in collector holdings showing what appears to be a die clash, a condition that occurs when the obverse and reverse dies come together without a planchet between them, transferring ghost images of each die face onto the other, so that when coins are subsequently struck, faint mirror impressions of the reverse design appear on the obverse field and vice versa, creating a coin that looks subtly, mysteriously wrong in a way that rewards careful examination with a loupe. Now here is where things get genuinely exciting, because a 1986 P Washington quarter pulled from a coin roll in average circulated condition is worth a modest premium over face value at best. That is the honest truth, and any responsible collector will tell you the same. But a 1986 P graded by PCGS or NGC at the MS67 level or above, with full luster, sharp strike, and none of the contact marks that plague mass-produced coins that were tumbled together in mint bags, is a completely different animal. At MS67, population reports show that the number of surviving examples drops sharply, because most of these coins lived their lives in circulation, accumulating the nicks and bag marks and worn surfaces that are the evidence of a working coin's biography, and the ones that somehow escaped all of that and survived in pristine gem condition are genuinely scarce in a way that the raw production numbers of 1986 would never suggest. Imagine stumbling across a roll of 1986 P quarters at an estate sale, cracking it open expecting nothing, and finding a coin with the kind of surfaces that make your breath catch, fully original mint luster rolling across the fields in cartwheel waves, Washington's portrait razor sharp with every hair ribbon detail crisply defined, the reverse eagle's feathers separated and distinct rather than mushed together by a weak strike or softened by circulation. That coin is not the same as the quarter someone spent at a parking meter in 1987, and the market treats it accordingly, with certified gems in top populations commanding prices that would genuinely shock the average person. The condition of your coin is everything. PCGS or NGC certification is not optional if you want to realize real premium value, because the difference between a raw coin someone claims is MS-67 and a coin that has actually been through the grading process and encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder is the difference between a claim and a fact, and the coin market pays for facts. So before you dismiss the 1986p as just another modern quarter, check your rolls, check your jars, check those old coin bags from the 80s, because the next story of someone finding a gem-grade example is waiting to happen, and it might be yours. And if the 1986p already has you leaning forward in your seat, I need you to brace yourself, because the next coin on our list today carries a story that goes even deeper, with quirks that collectors have been chasing for decades. Stay with me. Next, 1981p Washington quarter, and I want you to think about this for a second, because if the idea of finding a valuable coin in old change already had your attention, what I am about to tell you about this particular Philadelphia Mint quarter is going to send that attention into a completely different stratosphere. This is a coin so ordinary in appearance that millions of them were spent without a second glance throughout the 1980s and beyond, dropped into vending machines and coin fountains and church collection plates and forgotten entirely, and yet there exists a population of 1981p Washington quarters that serious numismatists actively hunt for with a focused, almost obsessive intensity that tells you everything you need to know about what this coin can be worth when the stars align. The year 1981 carries its own particular numismatic significance because the early 1980s were a period of genuine transition and pressure at the Philadelphia Mint. Economic conditions in the United States were turbulent. The Mint was navigating the ongoing aftermath of the silver exodus that had fundamentally changed American coinage in the mid-1960s. And the clad coinage system that replaced silver was still, in relative terms, a relatively young production reality, which meant that certain production quirks from this era are now viewed through the lens of genuine historical rarity rather than simple manufacturing error. Collectors who have spent years studying the 1981p Washington quarter have documented and discussed several features that make certain examples dramatically more valuable than the standard circulation coin. Foremost among these is a well-known variety involving the mintmark itself, because 1981 sits in a fascinating transitional window in terms of how mintmarks were applied to coins at the Philadelphia Mint, and examples that show mintmark anomalies, including what some attribute to repunched or shifted die characteristics affecting the P mintmark's placement or definition, have become legitimate targets for variety collectors who understand that these small details are the fingerprints of history pressed into metal. Beyond the mintmark discussion, the 1981p is a coin that rewards patient examination of the obverse fields for evidence of die deterioration doubling, a phenomenon that occurs when aging dies begin to show micro-level distortion in their surface, transferring that distortion onto coins as a kind of mechanical echo of the original design that shows up as soft, flowing doubling on high-relief elements like Washington's portrait and the date, and while die deterioration doubling is distinct from the more prized hub doubling. In certain specimens of the 1981p the effect is dramatic enough to catch the eye immediately and make the coin visually distinctive in a way that fuels collector interest. Now the real prize with the 1981p is finding one in a certified grade of MS-67 or higher with what graders describe as full bands on the reverse, referring to the horizontal bands across the eagle's breast shield being fully defined and separated rather than blending together into a mushy, indistinct mass. Because that combination of gem grade and sharp strike details is genuinely uncommon for this date, and population reports from the major grading services confirm that the number of coins meeting that standard is far lower than the original mintage would imply. Picture a collector in the early 2000s working through a bank hoard of original mint sewn rolls from the early 80s, the kind of rolls that sometimes surface at estate auctions when families clean out decades of saved coins that grandparents tucked away without ever spending, cracking roll after roll and finding mostly average examples until, in one particular roll, a coin slides out with luster so undisturbed and a strike so sharp that it is immediately, visually, obviously different from everything around it. That coin goes to a grading service, comes back in a holder that confirms what the collector already suspected, and suddenly a quarter that someone saved almost by accident decades ago is worth a genuinely serious sum of money to the right buyer at the right auction. The honest truth is that the 1981p in circulated condition from your pocket change is worth the time it takes to look at it, and nothing more dramatic than that, but the certified gem population is a different conversation entirely, one that PCGS and NGC population data backs up clearly, and that conversation is one that serious collectors are very willing to have at strong prices. Whatever you do, do not toss your old rolls of 80s quarters without at least giving them a look under good light, because the 1981p is the kind of coin that rewards exactly that kind of attention. But hold on, because what is coming next in today's video makes everything we have talked about so far feel like a warm-up. The 1980p Washington quarter has a story attached to it that is going to stop you cold, and I am not going to make you wait any longer. Next, 1980p Washington quarter, and right now I need you to really stop and focus, because we are stepping into territory that even experienced collectors find genuinely surprising when they first encounter it, a place where the line between an ordinary coin and an extraordinary one is razor thin, and the difference in value on either side of that line is breathtaking. The 1980p Washington quarter was produced at the Philadelphia Mint at a time when the facility was operating with a particular kind of institutional energy that makes this date interesting from multiple angles. 1980 was the first year that the Philadelphia Mint began adding the P mintmark to quarters, ending a long tradition of Philadelphia-struck coins bearing no mintmark at all, and that transition, that single, deliberate decision by mint officials, created an immediate and lasting layer of collector interest around every 1980p coin that simply did not exist for earlier Philadelphia quarters. Think about what that means for a moment. For generations of American coinage, if a coin had no mintmark, you assumed Philadelphia. It was an unwritten rule, a numismatic convention so deeply embedded that collectors internalized it without thinking. And then in 1980, for the quarter series, that changed. The P appeared. And collectors who had been paying attention knew immediately that 1980 was going to be a year to watch, a year to set coins aside, a year to look more carefully than usual. And sure enough, the coins produced in that transitional year carry characteristics and varieties that have kept researchers and variety hunters busy for decades since. Among the most significant discussions in 1980p quarter collecting is the examination of first year of mintmark varieties, specific die marriages where the positioning, size, and style of the P mintmark varies in ways that are now carefully catalogued by specialists, with certain combinations of die characteristics being dramatically rarer than others and commanding prices that reflect that rarity in certified holders. Collectors have documented examples of the 1980p showing what appears to be a repunched mintmark, where the P was punched into the working die more than once, either at a slightly different angle or position, leaving a doubled or ghosted mintmark impression that is visible under magnification and unmistakable to anyone who knows what to look for. Finding one of these RPM varieties of the 1980p in high uncirculated grade is the kind of discovery that prompts a very serious phone call to a numismatic specialist, because the combination of first-year transitional significance and documented variety status in a gem-certified holder places this coin in a completely different value bracket from the standard circulation example. There is also a compelling human story that runs through the collecting history of the 1980p, because in 1980, a meaningful number of ordinary Americans were paying attention to coins in a way they had not for years, partly driven by the extraordinary silver and gold markets of that era, the explosion of popular interest in precious metals, and a general cultural moment around the idea that tangible assets, including coins, held a kind of reliable value that paper money could not guarantee. Some of those Americans set aside rolls of 1980 quarters specifically because they recognized the mintmark transition as historically significant, and those rolls, when they surface today at estate sales and family auctions, sometimes contain examples preserved in conditions that the open market simply cannot replicate anymore. When a gem-grade 1980p quarter with a documented RPM variety hits a major auction in a PCGS or NGC holder, the bidding tells you everything you need to know about how seriously the collector community takes this date, and the prices realized are ones that make people who spent their 1980 quarters on lunch feel a very particular kind of regret. As always, the condition of your coin is the determining factor. A circulated 1980p with heavy wear and contact marks is a historical footnote, but a fully original gem with sharp strike and undisturbed luster carrying a documented variety attribution is a serious numismatic object that the market prices accordingly. Get your coins authenticated and certified if you think you have something. The difference between your gut feeling and a certified holder is the difference between a story and a result. And now, we arrive at the moment this entire video has been building toward, because the final coin on today's list is the one that changes everything, the one that makes every other quarter we have discussed today look like a preview, and I promise you that if you have stayed with me this far, what you are about to hear is going to be worth every second. Next, 1980 Washington quarter, and I want you to take a breath, because what we are about to discuss is the grand finale of today's video, the coin that sits at the top of everything we have built toward, and the story of the 1980 Washington quarter from the Denver Mint is one that hits differently than anything else on this list, not just because of what the coin is, but because of what it represents. A confluence of historical timing, production circumstances, collector obsession, and documented rarity that makes the finest surviving examples of this coin the kind of objects that serious numismatists will pursue for years, across auction after auction, waiting with the patience of dedicated hunters for the right example to surface in the right holder. Denver in 1980 was a mint operating under conditions that were simultaneously familiar and charged with a particular kind of pressure. The facility was producing massive quantities of coinage to meet national demand while navigating the economic turbulence of the early Reagan era, the metals markets, and a public that was, in certain corners, more coin-aware than it had been in years. And it was in that environment that the Denver Mint produced a Washington quarter that, in its rarest certified form, stands today as one of the most compelling modern quarter finds a collector can make. The 1980D carries significance partly by comparison to its Philadelphia counterpart, while the 1980P was making history as the first Philadelphia quarter to bear the P mintmark. The Denver D mint version of that same year was being produced with its own set of die characteristics, its own population dynamics, and its own suite of varieties that specialists have spent years cataloging and that the grading services have documented with population reports that tell a clear story about survival rates in high grades. Collectors who have studied the 1980D intensively have brought to light several features that make this coin worth examining with serious attention, among them, documented cases of strong mechanical doubling on the obverse that, while distinct from the more prized class of hub doubling, creates a visually striking effect on Washington's portrait and a date that catches the eye immediately. And in a coin that is otherwise in pristine gem condition, that visual drama translates directly into collector premium. More compelling still are the 1980D examples that specialists have identified as showing a misaligned die strike, where the obverse and reverse dies were not perfectly centered relative to each other during the striking process, shifting the design off-center in a way that is immediately visible and that, in dramatic examples, removes part of the design to the edge of the planchet while leaving a crescent of blank metal on the opposite side, creating what is unmistakably and definitionally an error coin of the first order. A 1980D Washington quarter with a significant and clean off-center strike, preserved in uncirculated condition, certified and encapsulated by a major grading service, is not a coin you come across every week, every month, or even every year. The surviving population of examples meeting those specific criteria is genuinely small, and the collector demand for them is absolutely real, sustained, and reflected in auction results that bear no resemblance to the coin's face value. Picture the scene: a long-time collector working methodically through a dealer's inventory at a major coin show, examining coin after coin with practiced efficiency, when suddenly a 1980D Washington quarter in a PCGS holder catches the light at exactly the right angle and the off-center strike is unmistakable, dramatic, and absolutely confirmed by the holder's attribution. That moment, that recognition, is what drives the deepest collectors in this hobby, and the prices those collectors are willing to pay when they find exactly what they have been looking for are prices that justify every hour spent searching. Beyond the error varieties, the standard gem grade 1980D is itself a more interesting coin than its raw production numbers suggest, because Denver quarters from this specific era have survival rates in true gem condition that specialists describe as challenging, the coins circulated heavily, bag marks from the original mint production process are common, and finding examples that cleared all of those obstacles and arrived at a grading service table in MS67 or MS68 condition with the strike. Quality to match is a genuine accomplishment of numismatic survival that the market rewards. There is something almost poetic about the 1980 Washington quarter being the final coin in today's video, because it encapsulates everything that makes this hobby extraordinary: the idea that a coin produced in enormous quantities in an industrial facility for the mundane purpose of everyday commerce can, through a combination of manufacturing circumstance, survival luck, and the passionate attention of dedicated collectors, become an object of genuine numismatic significance worth serious money in the right hands. The closing truth, as always, is that condition and certification determine everything. A worn, circulated 1980D tells you it lived its life as intended, and there is a kind of dignity in that, but it is not the coin that commands auction room attention, the gem, the error, the certified example with the attributes that specialists have documented and collectors have pursued. That is the coin that changes the conversation entirely, and that is the coin worth hunting for in every roll, every jar, every collection you come across. So here is my ask: go check your coins, go look at your old quarters from the 80s with fresh eyes and a good loupe, and if you find something that makes you do a double take, get it to a professional before you make any decisions, because the 1980D Washington quarter is proof that the most important coin you ever find might be one you already own. If today's video gave you something to think about, something to search for, something to get genuinely excited about, then please hit that like button, share this video with someone who keeps old coins lying around, and subscribe to Coin Nexa Vault, because this is exactly what we do here, every single video, and the next one is already going to be bigger than this one.